Joining me now, we have Dave Ehrenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, and Patricia Hurtado, legal reporter for Bloomberg News. And I welcome you both. We'll go ladies first. Patricia, what are your big takeaways from the trial this week?
Well, it was actually stunning to hear Hope Hicks describe the chaos that erupted when the campaign was notified that the story was about to break about the Karen McDougal payoffs. And they hurried around. They were preparing for Donald Trump to have his debate against Hillary Clinton. And she described going to a room with it included the likes of Stephen Miller and Chris Christie and Jeff Sessions, all helping Trump prepare for his debate with Hillary Clinton. And they have to tell him about this story that's about to break. And they were worried what impact it would have because it was happening right after the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I agree. Of course, talking about Hope Hicks, the testimony appeared to show that she was grateful for Trump's support launching her career, but then being so close to the former president meant that she knew more about this scheme than Trump would have liked, Dave. Did her testimony do more to help the prosecution or the defense?
Good to be back with you, Alex and Patricia. I think it helped the prosecution because she clearly stated that this was about getting Donald Trump elected, that this whole scheme was about helping Trump through the election. And although it is true, she did say that Trump was worried about Melania's reaction, and that will help the defense. She said, though, it was a bigger priority to get Trump elected. This was about the campaign, and that's why prosecutors called her, and that's why she's a powerful witness. And it didn't hurt the prosecutors that she broke down during cross-examination, started crying, because you could see the emotion in her that she had to, in essence, rat out her boss, the guy that she likes and admires. And she knew the import of that moment, that she was helping put him perhaps into behind bars in a conviction. And that's why I think she showed that emotion. And I think that's a lasting impression amongst jurors.
Let me just tell you what a New York Times reporter told me, Sue Craig, when I was doing the show yesterday. And she said that point that Hope made, where she said Donald Trump was worried about Melania, something that she made. And of course, that was not at all uttered earlier during the week, that it was more about the campaign he's concerned. She said, yeah, you're going to have to believe then that Melania lived in some sort of a news silo, and that just not getting the newspapers, that she would have no idea what was going on. I mean, the jury would have to believe that. But let me ask you about this, because Donald Trump gave his opinion of how the trial is going outside the courtroom on Friday. Listen.
The judge is highly conflicted. He should not be allowed to be the judge of this case. He's trying to make it as salacious as possible by allowing testimony that has nothing to do with the case. He wants to make it a nice salacious case, try and hurt Trump. But it's having the opposite effect, I think. We'll see, but the poll numbers are higher than they've ever been, and that's the story. But he's trying to make it as salacious. He's allowing things in that have nothing to do with this case, nothing to do with it.
Okay, Patricia, 3 times using the word salacious. Is that really how this trial's going?
You know, what struck me yesterday, Friday, about Hope Hicks's testimony, here's a woman that was obviously uncomfortable being there. Obviously, she mentioned that, I had to testify before the grand jury and I had to tell them what you're asking me now. She's obviously very troubled, which is why I think she started crying at the end of the direct and the beginning of the cross. But what she said, 2 important things. What was Trump's state of mind? What did he know about this payoff? And she said that Trump told her that Michael Cohen had paid money to silence this woman and that he had done nothing wrong, is one of the things he told Hope. And the jury might think otherwise because they've heard different testimony from different people that Trump knew about, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, the Playboy mom. The second thing she said is that Trump said it was better that it came out now, after he was elected president, than if it had come out when he was running during his candidacy in 2016, were 2 crucial points of the jury has to know state of mind. What is Donald Trump's state of mind? What does he know about these payoffs? And here he is saying 2 times. Once, I knew Michael Cohen paid for me and I didn't do anything wrong. But number 2, it was better that it came out after I got elected.
Yeah, well, wait, there are those signed checks that are going to be presented at some point soon. But let's talk about the New York Times, which describes the prosecution's strategy for the opening phase of testimony as spotlight the sleaze and soft pedal the records. Do you agree with that analysis so far, Dave? And if so, is it an effective approach?
Yes, you want to take the sting out of your weaknesses. You want to bring it up yourself because you don't want the defense to be the first ones to point out the flaws in your key witnesses. What they're trying to do is to establish a firewall around the key witness of Michael Cohen, because Michael Cohen is a flawed witness. But if you come up with a pre-buttal, which is what they've been doing, you've got David Pecker, you've got Keith Davidson, and now you've got Hope Hicks, and to come, you're going to have Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. So by the time that Michael Cohen takes a stand, the jurors will already have seen the facts, and they're going to be more willing to believe him. And I do not believe that Michael Cohen will be the final witness because he is a flawed witness. Yeah, I don't think he's the one you want to leave in the minds of the jurors as they go into the deliberation room. So they are working really hard to point out the sleaze in advance, to give the evidence in advance, to protect Michael Cohen, to create that firewall, and I think that's working.
So I mentioned the paper trail, Patricia. This is the week that the prosecution will likely start focusing on that. What documents will the jury see?
Well, we understand the jury is going to see the signed checks that Donald Trump wrote on the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, reimbursing Michael Cohen for his hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. So they're going to see that. We're likely to see, we've already seen a ton of email exchanges. And we know that Donald Trump didn't send emails, but all of his underlings did. So the combination of Michael Cohen and his text messages to David Pecker and Dylan Howard, the National Enquirer editor that was in charge of all these sleaze stories, we've seen already lots of communications just about Stormy and Karen McDougal. So we've already seen a ton of records that it's a paper trail of this story. And if Donald Trump is complaining these are salacious, sleazy allegations, I mean, this is a story about a porn star and a Playboy model and cover-up and payments of money. So whose idea was that? You know, I mean, Donald Trump may complain about it, but that's the essence of this case.
Yeah, very true. In opening statements, Todd Blanche, of course, Trump's lead lawyer, told the jury, quote, the business records violation that the people have brought against President Trump, the 34 counts, ladies and gentlemen, are really just 34 pieces of paper. So, Dave, what does the prosecution have to do to show the jury that those 34 pieces of paper have criminal intent to them?
This is all about the falsification of business records, which is just a misdemeanor under New York law. But to become a felony, it's got to conceal another crime, like a campaign finance violation. So far, the prosecution has been successful in tying Trump to the scheme and to show that it was meant to influence the election, hence the campaign finance violation. The only missing piece of the puzzle, Alex, is that the prosecution has not yet established that Donald Trump was involved in the falsification of the business record itself. So when they attributed these payments to Michael Cohen as legal fees, was Donald Trump responsible for that? That's where I think they're going to use Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is going to be the one to just finally fill in that last piece of the puzzle. And yeah, Todd Blanche may be right. It's just 34 pieces of paper. But as a prosecutor, pieces of paper will get you a lot of prison time. So he's trying to minimize it, but I don't think it's working.
And when, Patricia, do you think Michael Cohen takes a stand?
It's obvious what the prosecution is doing has been building up slowly for a case. You know, handicapping this has been a game among journalists for weeks now of when are they going to put him on. He may be coming down the road later as they lay the groundwork completely, and he could be their penultimate witness because he's basically the guy that's going to put all this, you know, tie all the loose ends together. We still need to see a little bit more about the finances and the payments. We've heard from Michael Cohen's banker, but, you know, any day now is probably a best guess of Michael Cohen coming soon.
Okay, good answer there. And all of them, Patricia Hurtado and Dave Aronson. Good to see you both. Thank you very much. Aaron Berg, I'm very sorry, Dave.